So normally, on the first day after New Year's, I do a, hey, welcome to 2018, and here's the state of the church. So I'm going to do a little bit of that, but we launched on January 1st a 100 Days of Love campaign. And so every day you can find on our social media, you can find scripture pertaining to love, and I'll come back to that. So I couldn't really start that and then just ignore it on the first day here. So we'll do a little bit of State of the Church and a little bit of an intro to our newest series. Our newest series here. So let's talk about 2017. Yeah? We had a pretty good year. We had a huge amount of growth in 2016. We stalled at the beginning of 2017, and our numbers kind of have been like up and down like this, and that's not exciting. But we've had a few babies, and we have lots of kid stuff going on. Our Thrive Parents group has been fantastic and supportive. I keep getting feedback about that, and so we've had a really nice year. Our series, we published a new statement on inclusion on our website, which is exciting. We did a whole study on LGBTQ in the church and what that looks like and how we talk about it and how we're supposed to respond as a church and all of that. We had a fun little series on privilege. That was exciting. Yeah, that was exciting. What else did we do? Yeah, renewal. We had some cool interviews and stuff like that. And one of the things that we asked at the beginning of last year is, what are we supposed to be doing that we're not doing? So we had a lot of growth, we had a lot of fun, but how do we move into that space of caring for our community and being active and those kinds of things? And I want to continue that theme this year. So we've done some of that, and I think we're called to continue that search. And so that's what this is. This 100 Days of Love is really about. Our community, our broader community in 2017 was a rough year. I don't know if you see Canada-wide news, but Maple Ridge got a lot of press nationwide this year. And I'll be honest, it was not good press. One, I don't remember, I think it was, I want to say CBC, but one article named Maple Ridge as the most hateful city in Canada. That's not something I would like our community to be known for. We struggled with how, as a community, do we respond to homelessness? How do we respond specifically to the camp down on 223rd, Anita Place? How we struggled, and beyond that, we struggled with just basic compassion and care and concern for people. Which a few years ago, I sat down with someone that was looking for stories of compassion in our community. Our city was attempting to become, there's a title you get for being a compassionate, I think it was compassionate community, or I don't remember the right word, something like that. And so they had tasked somebody with going and finding people to tell stories about compassion and love in our community. And then we flipped that to 2017. That was only 3 years ago. And we flipped that to 2017, and we have national press coverage of being one of the most hateful communities in the country. I go, wait a second, what happened? How are we so off base with who we are as a community? And I've spent so much time thinking, okay, as the church, what are we supposed to be? Where are we supposed to be active in our community to combat this, to be the voice of love and the voice of compassion, the voice of grace, the voice of mercy in our community? And I still struggle to figure out what does that look like? How do we do that? How do we be that? So this is a reaction to 2017. This is a response. This is, hey, how can we be that voice? What can we do to actively shift the way our community thinks and acts and responds? I'll tell you a story. I know I told a piece of this story early on in the homeless camp. But I want to share it again because there is hope. We don't have to just look at this most hateful community and move on. We don't have to look at this small segment of angry, loud voices and say, well, I guess that's our community. Because we all know the people in our community, and we know they have care and compassion and love, and we just need to pull that out of them. So several months ago, we had the camp, we had housing putting forward by the city, by BC Housing, and we had a few people that were actively organizing against those locations and different things. One in particular, we had a location in the middle of Lougheed Highway, right next to Vet. There's some open land. The land had been purchased. They were ready to move forward with housing for a community in need, and there was a petition started, launched, a campaign against, and the gentleman that led that petition, that led that resistance, showed up one day. He called me one day. He had been down at the camp. He goes to another church in town. He had been down at the camp. He had heard that we were kind of involved in different stuff, and he called and he said, I might be rethinking my position on homelessness in Maple Ridge. And I was like, okay, here's one of the most outspoken people. You lump them in with all of these other hateful comments and actions in our community, and he's called to say, I think I might be rethinking my position on homelessness in our community. And so we talked for a little while, and he's like, these people need help. I was like, yes, you're right. How novel. These people need help. And he began thinking some more, and he's like, what if we got the churches together and did this? Or what if we did that? Or what if this? And then we got off the phone. We were going to come back together later. I didn't hear from him for a while. And he calls back again later, and he's like, hey, we spoke a little while ago. I was thinking about this. We launched our meals for Need a Place Tent City. And this gentleman, on his own, stepped up and said, I'll be there every other week with sandwiches and soup to help feed the camp. Total flipped, upside down reversal of where he was and how he felt. We went from complete anger, resistance, pushback of any kind of help and aid to this community to literally there by himself. He's going to local businesses to get them to donate goods to help this community. He is actively calling on his church to participate and be helpful. He's all over the place because he saw something. He realized something. He noticed something. He had this shift from anger, frustration to compassion and grace and love. So I know it can happen. And I'll be honest, I was shocked to get his phone call. Knowing who he was, where he came from, everything that he had been involved in, I was shocked to get his phone call. And And those stories are going to keep coming. But we have to be a voice of compassion. We have to be a voice of love. He doesn't have somebody to bounce those ideas off if we're not actively engaged in the conversation. If we're not public about where we're at and how we need to be and what we think the direction we believe our community needs to go. If we're exploring God's love, people will gravitate to that. Not in like a, oh, look at us kind of way, but in like a, hey, we can shift the conversation in our community toward love, toward grace, toward compassion. That's my hope for 2018. That's my hope for what we're doing in this series is how can we do this? It was a rough 2017 for our community. But there's hope to move forward. And we need to be a part of that. So I need some help from you before we press on. I need some help from you on what does that look like. We're serving meals every other week. We're trying to organize a broader community so that we have a dinner there every night to help out. But on the bigger picture, how do we move people from anger, frustration, hate, toward love and grace and compassion? How do we do that as a small body, as a church, engaged in the lives and the polity of our community? How do we do that? So I need ideas. I need your help. Because I keep thinking about it and I don't know. Maybe it's some grand campaign. Maybe it's subtly trolling haters on Facebook. I don't know. Maybe not. I don't know what those things are. But I know, and this is the thing about this work, is that it's hard. It's hard to come up with those ideas because if they were easy, they would already be happening. It's easy to find hate. It's easy to be frustrated. It's easy to talk about it. It's hard to be creative and do it and figure out the ways to influence our community. So we have a couple of series and different things planned for the year to kind of move us that way. Let's see if this will work. This is day 7. Owe no one anything except to love one another. For whoever loves others has fulfilled the law. This is Paul speaking in Romans. And what he's going to do next is just hammer that point. You've heard this commandment and this commandment and this commandment. All of those are summed up if we can just love one another. The law, the prophets, everything has been driving to this one idea. And if you can just figure out how to understand and actively love, you fulfill the law. You answer the law. You move beyond the need for those commandments and those rules and those regulations because everything is built around the love of God, exploring that love, seeing that love in the world around us, and showing that love. Jesus was asked, what do I need to do to be saved? Sorry, different story. He was asked, what is the greatest commandment? And Jesus says, well, you already know it. And he says, okay, well, yeah, it's to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. And the second one, love your neighbor as yourself. And Jesus said, you've got it. He says, but what does it mean to love my neighbor? Who is my neighbor? And Jesus tells this beautiful story. We're going to do this again later. You know I have to do it all the time, right? So he tells this beautiful story about the Good Samaritan, about this Samaritan that is everything against who this lawyer was that was speaking to him. Uh-oh, that's weird. It's not going to work. And he says, that's your neighbor. But there's a fine point that Jesus adds to that. On the end of that statement, he says, that's your neighbor. Go and do. You see, it's an active statement. Go and do. It's not something we talk about. In fact, one of the first posts that we did of 100 Days of Love was, it's not just something you talk about. It's something you do. We can all talk about it. We've been doing that for a long time, and we're good at it because it sounds nice and everyone loves to talk about it. Doing it is hard, and Jesus says, go and do. The immediate next story is Mary and Martha and Jesus' teaching in their home. And one of them is cooking and distracted and can't hear. The lawyer couldn't hear because he was focused on what he needed for himself. Martha can't hear because she's focused on doing too much. She has to be doing this because it's supposed to happen. And Jesus' response to her is sit and listen and learn. But it's an active statement. And it's not just frivolous doing, it's an active statement. Go and do, or sit and learn, explore and see, go and do. This is what this 100 Days of Love is really about. This is the law and the prophets. Love your neighbor as yourself. That's what we're called to be, to do, to act. And it all gets wrapped up. We have, there's something like 613 commandments in the Hebrew Bible. We make our own from the New Testament and we add things that we're supposed to do. We have to do this, this, and this. We make our checklist so that we know everything that needs to happen for us to be right with God. And Paul says, forget all of that because it's all frivolous commandments. What you need to know is to love. What you need to know is to explore that, what God is, who God is, and then do love. Very simple. And instead of a negative, don't do this and don't do that, it's a positive, go and be God's love to the world around you.